Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And if you're joining us from a different time zone, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. And thank you for those who are actually joining us live today. And I will appreciate if you can engage with us by asking your questions, by sharing your comments or your takeaway from this conversation. And if you're new in this platform, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Mary Lynn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, Asia's most trusted training and business solutions partner, and we're registered as an event services company in Singapore, organizing bespoke training, roundtable discussions, and summits to help leaders generate profit, cost savings, and impact towards their business. And this is actually a pre event for our Cyber Resilience Summit, which brings together leaders, practitioners, and solutions providers and expert, of course, to build resilient organization ready for the next decade. So today we are actually talking about third-party risk, and this session is not really about avoiding all vendor risks. It's about providing your organization guidance on how to make the right decisions before, during, and after the incident. And of course, as per usual, it's my great pleasure to invite some of my distinguished panelists today, starting with Sharv. Hi, Sharv. So Sharv is a global cybersecurity and governance leader with over 20 years of experience as a CISO and security executive across multinational organizations. Um, he has designed and led multi-year cybersecurity and risk programs for companies across Europe and beyond, combining deep technical expertise with strong board-level government governance and strategy. Sharvind is currently the managing partner at Shawne Applebee International. Hi, Sharv. Nice to have you again.
Sorry, my mic. Hi, hi, Marilyn. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone.
Thank you and welcome. And of course, I'd like to invite as well Ruth Mary Kalamba. Ruth is a senior operational risk and resilience leader with over 20 years of experience across global financial institutions. She currently heads operational and resilience risk at Union Bank of the Philippines and previously held regional leadership roles at HSBC, NAB, and Deloitte. Ruth specializes in embedding resilience, governance, and high responsibility organization principles across complex and regulated environment. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, Shar. Happy to be here today.
Our pleasure to have you here. I also want to introduce JR Garcia. He's a privacy, information security, and risk management leader with over 20 years of experience across highly regulated and jurisdictional environments. He has led enterprise governance programs spanning financial services, fintech, BPO, and e commerce with deep expertise in global privacy and security regulation, including GDPR. JR holds multiple certification across audit, security, and data protection disciplines. Hi, JR.
Hello, Marilyn. Hello, everyone.
Thank you for accommodating us today. And of course, last but not the least, I have Neil Templeman. He's the cybersecurity executive, investor, and advisor with more than 15 years of experience across government, critical infrastructure, and large enterprises. He currently leads SoftTech, operating at the intersection of cybersecurity innovation and social impact. Neil has worked closely with major organizations, including many of the ASX top 50 organizations, bringing a pragmatic ecosystem wide view of third party and supply chain risk. Hi, Neil.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, our pleasure to have you here. So let's get started. And for my first question, I would like to address this question to uh, So, from your experience across regulated environments, where do most third party risk programs fail? So, what are the challenges? I would say.
Thanks, Marilyn. So, actually, in my experience, third-party risk programs don't usually fail because people don't care. They fail because the program is usually built around compliance artifacts, and rather than really looking at how risk shows up in the operations. So, I just
Mhm.
wanted to go through three things that we are all noticing. This is the first major gap is the third-party risk due diligence is always treated as an onboarding event, not as a life cycle risk. So we do really do good reviews at the start, looking at questionnaires, assessment, contracts, and when the vendor is live, the oversight stops. But the real risk emerges when there is scope creep, deeper system integrations, subcontracting, staff turnover, and control degradation. The second gap I also see is that vendors are not clearly linked to our critical business services. So we rate vendors as high or medium risk, but they can't often explain what that means if a vendor fails. So without that linkage, risk ratings just become abstract. And boards really struggle to understand why a particular vendor truly matters from a resilience risk perspective. And the third gap is over reliance on our static attestations. So that what as I mentioned before, policies, certifications, self-assessments are important, but they don't actually tell you how well those controls are designed or performed today. So what's often missing in what we're doing is actually the ongoing visibility into those controls. So things like as access management, patching discipline, incident response, and change management, those are not really as articulated unless you're actually oversighting those. So when an incident happen, usually an organization can show the documents, but they really struggle to show evidence of continuous awareness and how oversight is actually playing in that. So in short, failure isn't the lack of controls, it's the lack of continuous service focused and evidence-based oversight.
Wow, thank you for sharing that with us. And I really appreciate that you managed to share with us like the difference on having or giving more importance not on just ticking box, but actually uh, really looking at the linkage between vendors, the reliance to statistic, and having to incorporate it with how the business is also working, right? And so, having said that, I would like to address my next question to Neil. And so, having said that, how do organization realistically balance commercial pressure and speed with resilience when dealing with critical vendors, especially in digital and cloud heavy ecosystem? Like we know that quite a bit of organizations are moving towards this cloud, right,
Yeah,
and
it's a great
digitalization. Yeah.
question. So just to sort of set the scene and context for the way I'll address this is I've run third-party risk programs and been responsible for the vendor onboarding, but I've also recently, over the last couple of years, helped large enterprises scope and deploy third-party risk projects. So I'll try and answer this question from both of those perspectives. What I see in the market is I see too many companies or organizations having a standard approach to third-party risk or the way they might assess third-party risk. I don't think it comes down to the size of company or
Mhm.
actually the contract value of the organization. I think it's largely about the business impact. I'd like to see more organizations
Mhm.
actually focusing on the business impact.
Mhm.
Third-party risk, as we know by definition, is a point in time assessment. Now, how static is our industry? How quickly do risk profiles and risk postures of organizations change and surface? So the companies that I see this doing this really well and removing that pressure from time and resilience is those that are doing continuous monitoring, not doing point in time assessments, but actually truly monitoring the risk profile of their whole trust ecosystem. I'd like to see organizations engaging a lot earlier and not doing risk assessments at the negotiation or procurement point. Also, those companies that are doing continuous monitoring can start to get a future view of the third parties risk prior to contractual negotiation, which I think again really builds that trust and ecosystem. I think with regard to getting board support and board funding, I'd like to see companies start to think about this from the lens of revenue and continuity protection, and not just risk reduction. Because often a lot of the business requirements to onboard third parties are often revenue enablers. I saw an example only last year where an organisation struggled through a really arduous process to onboard. I won't name the software vendor, but the software vendor was linked to unlocking some serious go to market and revenue for that organization. So of course the delay had real severe financial impact to the organization. So in summary, I think continuous monitoring, recognizing that third party risk is not a point in time assessment, and really using a proactive measure to build that trust within your supplier ecosystem.
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate how you highlight again that it's all about like looking at it from the what business results are you looking at, and really building this as an ecosystem with of course continuous monitoring, and getting the board or the leadership involved in the process, right? Not just for funding, but really to create more awareness in the space, right? So thank you for that answer, Neil. And so with vendors increasingly using AI and automation, what new risk indicators should organizations start measuring that weren't really relevant 3 years ago, Sharp? Sharp,
Yeah.
are
Mm,
your
yeah.
microphone on?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
um, all right. So from an AI perspective, I think it there's different areas of risk elements that we have to look at. The first one is really the model itself. So if a vendor is posing any kind of services based on
Mhm,
the AI model. So the integrity of the AI model itself, sometimes we have to challenge that because
mhm,
it's about the accuracy of the output, these kind of
mhm,
things. We tend to rely on what the vendor says, but um, we don't know what's the failure rate of these AI models. So we
mhm,
have to monitor that.
mhm,
The other element with regards to the model itself is hallucination rate. So we have seen a lot of cases recently where there have been AI generated contents that was not reliable because either the model was inventing information, was creating fictitious information and generating output. So uh, when you rely on a vendor for that, for AI services, you have also to monitor how frequently the model is actually uh, outputting
mhm,
incorrect information, or it is
mhm,
creating fictitious outputs. So all that are risks which before were not there, were not out there. The second element is data, because any AI system relies on data. What
mhm,
we don't have as in terms of visibility is what data the vendor has used to train his model, whether there's IP rights, whether he's been uh, following ethical approaches to train his model. So these are things which, unfortunately, you will not have a visibility because
mhm,
you as a user, as a corporate using a service, we tend to focus on what is the added value of the model, but we don't go in the background. There's no due diligence as such, which is done on the AI component itself to see how
mhm,
they created it, how they train it, because what matters to any organization is you want the AI model to be delivering either some kind of automation or some kind of assistance to your internal operations. So the training data also becomes a bit of a, I would say, a key element that we need to address. Other more generic aspects would be really dependency, uh, how much of our internal services or internal operation and organization is willing to outsource in a certain way to an AI platform, and how do they avoid ending up in a kind of dependency model? Because the more you rely on a certain model or on a certain service provider, you should be have the flexibility of shifting, of changing to other alternatives if ever it doesn't work out. So the AI model lock-in or vendor lock-in kind of element is also a key factor that organizations need to be very careful about. And generally speaking, we see that most solutions out there which leverages AI, they tend to be a kind of a black box model. You don't really know how the model is operating in the back end. What's the logic? I mean, you don't know anything about the model. You just know you're inputting something and you are getting some kind of output. But what is actually going on? What's the logic which is being used? It's really a black box that you get from vendors. So that is a major liability, especially from a regulatory perspective. I mean, in Europe we have the EU AI Act that was published, and that organizations need to follow. Now it is fully enforced, so there are certain um, guidelines around how to use AI ethically, how to develop AI applications ethically, and more generic risks that tend to come with any application, AI, non-AI. So you have the basic, I would say, attack that could be targeting an application. So with regards to AI applications, you have typical attacks around prompt injection, which is very common, and if if you rely on service provider for, I don't know, for example, identity verifications and everything, because this is becoming more and more common now. So deepfake become a very, very important issue as well. So that's I would say some generic risks that I would tend to see that were not there 3 years ago.
Thank you so much for summarizing that for us. And again, what I'm hearing from Ruth, Neil, and you is really so much around like tailoring it based on the business, the processes that you use, and being able to look at the data to make sure that everything works, or the leverage on technology is there, right? So thank you so much. And before I ask my question to JR, I just wanted to acknowledge, I hope I'm reading your name correctly, Uros Orasik. So many true points. This all why we uh, DORAP team of fintech and compliance experts decided to create DORAP. So it's an advertisement for us, Dora, but soon other regulations. What is your opinion on automation application? And I guess you've answered this already in my question, right? Just now, Sharp, about
Yeah, partially.
automation.
In fact,
Mhm.
yeah, about automation. So actually, I don't know, probably most of you heard of Dora. So Dora is one of the things which addresses what Ruth has mentioned, and also around regularly evaluating your vendors. So, but it is applied mainly to financial services operators. But
Mhm.
yeah, I part of it is I've already covered.
Thank you for that, and I hope we answered your question. And thank you for joining us live today. And so I'd like to, I mean, we've talked about like automation, AI, technology, and how we can balance the commercial pressures in creating resilience, right? So, which contractual clauses, governance mechanism are most often overlooked, and which ones actually make a difference during a breach investigation, JR?
That's a very interesting question, Marilyn. So basically, In terms of contractual clauses, we expect that our vendors, our providers, will able to provide us timely notification because we don't
Mhm.
want this incident or incident breach happening. But again,
Mhm.
we can never have a perfect process, right? So in
Mhm.
terms of the incident and breach or a breach happening, it's very important that this particular clause in the contract has been reviewed and signed off to
Mhm.
ensure that our vendors are timely notifying us for breach. Because again, we have discussed a regulation which is DORA. There's different
Mhm.
regulation we need to consider aside from notifying our client in terms of the contractual clauses. So we need to ensure that these are very specific. But then again, during the review process, there could be some back and forth with the vendors, with the clients, and as we
Mhm.
review it, there will be some review on what will be the proper language to be used. But it should be
Mhm.
very critical that we have able to specify this, the timeliness of notification, the scope,
Mhm.
because we don't
Mhm.
want to be penalized for not reporting accordingly to our clients, to our
Mhm.
customers, and as well notification as well to the regulators, because very regulators now are very critical on this notification requirements, given that not only on different sectors that we work in, as we mentioned specifically, that if that is pertaining to personal data that may cause harm to the customers or clients. In addition to that is we need to make sure that all the information during the investigation process are readily available. Sometimes
Mhm.
during the investigation process, we are waiting for the drop reports, for the logs from the vendors, and it delays the notification that we need to provide to our
Mhm.
customers and clients. So we need to make sure that these informations are not being overlooked in the contract. So at least during the investigation process, the information verification, root cause analysis, the notification review, the regulation and the legal requirements are being reviewed accordingly if all this information become readily available.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and I hope I have summarized it properly. Again, it's all about having the data available for you, and also making sure that's included in the contractual uh, process, right? In the review and having this information, because at the end of the day, right? Like what they've been saying is that it's not all about if, but it's all about when and how fast are you gonna act on it, right? And how can you resolve that? I remember that conversation in the first pre-event we did 2 weeks ago, and Jeff made mention, he's a CFO, so he made mention around that space where uh, like how fast it's not weeks, but it has to be in hours, or as fast as you can resolve the situation, right? So thank you so much for reminding us of that and making sure it's included in the contractual process. So yeah, uh, just being conscious of our time, I would like to ask you, all of you, on this question. Which is my favorite question, because this is like a Miss Universe or Mr. Universe question in this matter. So, if you have a magic wand and can use it, what will you do with it? Particularly in our topic now around third party, and how the proper diligence. So, what can you leave our audience with when it comes to this matter? Who would like to go first?
Maybe I'll kick off um, on that. In terms of a magic wand, perhaps I would want organizations to stop proving intent and start proving awareness and action. So when an incident occurs or a third party incident occurs, the real due diligence is shows up in action. So then
Mhm.
they all of them exist within that incident. So one, making sure that the organization understood the dependency, so when the critical service relied on a particular vendor and why that risk mattered, and making sure that we continuously provide active oversight. So again, going back to the earlier points from the colleagues on the call, it's not just about the annual reviews, but really making sure that we're continuously monitoring, challenging, and escalating when the risk drifted or when things change or the process changes moving forward, and making sure that we're ready inevitably. So making sure that you have clear notification paths, tested those escalations, and actually have clarity on who's supposed to be making those decisions when things go wrong. So what the regulators want to see is not about perfection, but they want
Mhm.
to see a clear and an audible story that the risk that was there was clearly understood, it was monitored and deliberately managed.
I love that. I love that because again, it's all about awareness and knowing what to do right after
Yeah, so
when
it's just
things
not on
happen,
paper
right?
and not tucked away somewhere. It's actually something that's very active, and I think that's what I want to see more of. And it's not just an exercise that we do every year.
Yes, and again, it takes practice as well, and that's actually what I believe most companies are missing out because a lot of times they rely heavily on IT people or like whoever is in charge in cybersecurity or whatnot. But again, it's everyone's responsibility, right?
That's
Thank you,
correct.
Ruth, for that reminder. So, who would like to go next with their magic wand?
I'll go on. I'll wave mine next.
Sure.
So Ruth made a really good point earlier. I mean, if I had a magic wand, I'd like to see really tighter alignment than exists today between, an organization's risk score and the business impact. I don't see a lot of organizations really doing that particularly
Sorry,
well.
is it mine or on side? I lost you for a bit. It's like kind of robotic from my side. Um, please
Can
repeat
you
again.
you can hear me now?
Yes, a little bit robotic side. That's probably my connection.
Can the other panelists hear me okay?
You're good.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
We can hear
So
you.
just for the
Okay,
purpose of,
so that's from my side, I guess. Okay,
I'll
go
just
ahead.
repeat. I'd like to see Ruth touched on the point earlier. I'd like to see really tight alignment between a proposed risk score and the business impact. I still think a lot of organisations are sort of out of kilter with that. I'd love a world with no questionnaires, no annual assertions. I'd love to see organisations provide having continuous visibility of the vendor security posture. And I think what's really important, I'd like to see more organizations move to a place where evidence that you are monitoring before the incident. So there'd be the kind of three things if I had a one that I'd love to see happen.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Again, it's really more on alignment between the organization and their vendor, making sure that there's monitoring and evidence, if I got that correctly. Great, great. And who would like to go
I can go
next?
next, Marlon.
Oh, JR, go ahead.
Yeah, so again, it's the good point that our colleagues, panelists there have shared here, because most of the time in terms of due diligence, we just want to get this over the line, right? So we want to make sure that we're just not taking a checklist or a compliance item. So we want to see
Yes.
more accountability. Who owns this third party? Not just looking around, it's IT, it's anyone who will look into it. Yeah, we will. Everyone can support it, but there should be someone accountable to ensure that at the onset of onboarding this particular vendor, that isn't just completing the questionnaires, but making sure that this particular items are verified. It's okay to trust, but it's to verify, and then we don't want to wait for an incident to verify that all these answers they have completed in due diligence are accurate or not. So we need to make sure that timely manner, we're able to verify that and making sure that as mentioned by our colleague, the risk rating are reflective of what they process and how they making sure the information are very secured as we share that to them. So that's my point of view on that.
Yes, and that's important, right? As we mentioned earlier, it's not about pointing fingers, not about when, if, but when. And so it's really it really takes accountability to be able to handle that. I appreciate that, JR, that reminder. And before I ask you, Sharp, let me just flash some comments here. How hard do you find it? Oh, we have additional question. How hard do you find it escalating third party risk to senior management? And how much clarity is there on who owns third party risk? This is often unclearly defined in my experience. So I guess this is what you just shared as well, JR,
Yes.
around the accountability part.
Yes.
Um, and business impact is the most undertrained part of risk assessment in practical terms. Um, Impact needs to translate into loss scenarios, and the business be clear on this as part of the sign uh, up to mitigation plans. I guess uh, Ruth can also, like, since you handle operations and resilience risk, you might want to give a comment on this. And
I think that's a great point, Matt. I think it's also making sure that we have the right scenarios in place, and it's actually something that is you can test in logical form. So, absolutely, I think it's also understanding what that business impact assessment is trying to do and whether or not we've actually built the plans behind it. One thing that we struggle with actually is, does the actual third party understand what our tolerable disruptions are and how quickly can they respond? Because often we don't actually meet in the same time frame. So yes, absolutely agree with that.
thank you. And Sharv, your magic wand, or you might want to give like an additional answer to Matt's question.
The other panelists all took all the magic. There's no more magic in my wand. No, generally speaking, I think pretty much align on what everybody has just said. Ideally, today, due diligence exercises is really a pain for organization. Everybody comes with their questionnaire, and like Neil said, everybody wants justification, a list of evidence, like Ruth mentioned, and it's just that ideal in an ideal world, it would be so much easy to have something where you look at the vendor profile, whatever way we will
Mhm.
have it, you know that okay, you can trust that that third party and they are monitoring things the right way. That would be an ideal world. I don't know if that's going to happen ever because today everyone sends their questionnaire. When there is an incident, everyone wants you to report it in their format. So it's just not manageable. It's just not manageable. Today the overhead for organizations to manage third-party due diligence exercise is just too much, is even more than doing proper risk management and business risk assessment because the vendor won't sign a contract unless to go through the exercise. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done around that in how to harmonize things. I don't know if it is even possible across jurisdictions, across geographies, but yeah, today the way we do it is questionnaires and doing yearly assessments or more frequently doing checkpoints. But hopefully in the future we can have something which is more streamlined and more automated around that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me just share the summary if I understand that correctly. Again, it's really about like checking the profile of your vendors that you work with, and of course the continuous monitoring, because again, we'll never know when it happens and what we do when it happens, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a comment here. Periodic reviews are necessary between vendors and businesses. There are risk scenarios, particularly with third party vendors, tool and processes vulnerabilities. Third parties and MSPs should look into their own security postures and be able to produce adequate facts such as certification and standard practices, ensuring their clients and partners are not inheriting their risk. Thank you. I don't see your name, but I really appreciate your feedback and your comment, and I guess the answer to earlier questions as well. So, are there any other like message that you'd like to add in before we end our conversation? Wow, that quiet moment. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that we were able to make it like in time, and I really appreciate all your insights, recommendations that you've shared based on the experience that you have as well, working as a third party or with third parties, and I really appreciate as well our audience who are actively communicating or engaging with us. Oh, but wait, there's another question. Is third party risk transferable and how? And is it cost effective to do so in this case? What are some of the key points should we look at when auditing this area of interest? Okay. So maybe before we end this conversation, would you want to have like any answers to this? Any one of you?
Um, I think with regards to whether third party risk is transferable, I would say no, because if you transfer it, you're going to transfer it to another third party. So actually, yeah, I don't think it's transferable as such. You just have to manage it. And yeah, is it cost effective? Well, the fact that you can't transfer cost element doesn't apply anymore. But yeah, basically, when auditing, I think common things are really what in the beginning of the session we've mentioned. It's really about the reliance you have on that third party, how critical they are to your business, what are your critical business operations that relies on that vendor, and find a way of identifying your critical vendors so that you can monitor them more closely. So I would say, yeah, that is a fundamental piece, from my opinion.
I'll probably just add, going to the point of before, we need to make sure that our senior management and leaders understand the impact of our third party risks and not necessarily just treating it as another assessment. So it is really something that supports our resilience. So that is basically their responsibility as risk owners. So uh, again, just going back to that point, can transfer. It's in there and it needs to be managed continuously.
Thank you. Thank you for answering our final question. And again, I appreciate our distinguished panelists joining me and supporting me. They're the experts around this space, and I hope I managed to moderate this effectively. And thank you so much to our amazing participants as well. I appreciate you joining us. And from Facebook, I saw that Jobs shared his love to us, and Tina Relosa says thumbs up to us, and of course we've received like insightful session, great sessions, guys. I don't see their name. Great panel, and of course thank you Uros and Matt for also joining us, and whoever you are, because it's showing link and users only on my side. So thank you so much for your very good questions. And again, this has been an insightful conversation. And I would like to take this opportunity before we end to invite you to our upcoming Cyber Resilience Summit on April 2026 in Crown Plaza, Manila Galleria, and Zoom event. And of course, this is for C levels who understand cyber resilience is a leadership mandate, for CISOs, IT heads, and other corporate leaders who would like to learn practical strategies, tools, and techniques, with and of course the solutions providers who'd like to engage with qualified decision makers, build trust with them, and form strategic partnerships in growing Philippine market. And together, definitely, we can strengthen cyber resilience. Uh, because this is such a huge challenge, right? That most or all countries are facing right now. So thank you so much. And bye for now. See you in 2 weeks. Our next conversation will be more around AI. So see you and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you, everyone.